Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. On behalf of the Tata Group and on behalf of Starbucks, it gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to this dialogue on customer centricity and leadership. The dialogue on customer centricity and leadership is a thought leadership forum that we have put in place at the Tata Group, where we invite CEOs of the group, senior leaders of the group, young managers of the group, to listen to iconic leaders from across the world. It is our rare privilege to have with us here for today's dialogue Mr. Howard Schultz, Chairman and CEO of Starbucks, and one of the most iconic business leaders worldwide. I want all of us, on behalf of the Tata Group, Howard, we would like to extend a very, very warm welcome to you to come into this session. Thank you very much. We also have the privilege of having with us here our Group Chairman, Mr. Cyrus Mistry. Sir, welcome to the session. From the Starbucks leadership team at Seattle, I'd like to extend a very special word of welcome to Mr. John Kalva and to Mr. Vivek Verma, both of whom are also directors on the board of Tata Starbucks. Thank you very much, John and Vivek, for being here. To CEOs of the Tata Group, young leaders of the Tata Group, Mr. Krishna Kumar, a warm word of welcome to you. To select members of the media who are here today, to all of you, a very, very warm word of welcome. We hope you will find this a very useful, very enjoyable dialogue. Before we start the most awaited dialogue, there is a very special ritual at Starbucks. A ritual so core to the brand and so close to the partners of Starbucks. And for this ritual, I would like to now invite Ms. Manmeet Vora, Director, Marketing and Category, Tata Starbucks Private Limited, to take us through the coffee tasting ritual. Manmeet, over to you.
Thank you, Harish. It is indeed a ritual at Starbucks to start everything with a great cup of coffee. We call it coffee tasting. Today, we're going to share with you India Estates Blend. India Estates Blend is a very high-quality Arabica coffee, which is sourced from Tata Coffee's plantations in Coorg and Chikmagalur. It is actually a testimony to the commitment of Tata and Starbucks towards the coffee-growing communities in India. We launched it at the first anniversary of Tata Starbucks in India in 2013. To take you through the India Estates Blend coffee tasting, we have a very special and passionate partner with us today, who's also the winner of the first coffee championship in India. She is a true example of the partner pride and warmth with which our partners create beautiful moments of connection with our customers each day. Please join me in welcoming Saili Rane.
Thank you, Manmeet. Hello, everyone. It's a true privilege and honor to stand in front of you today and share my Starbucks coffee passion with you. Let me briefly introduce myself to you. I'm Saili Rane, a proud partner from Mumbai. I work at Mumbai Domestic Airport Starbucks store. I have been with Tata Starbucks since the last 2 years, and I'm extremely proud and happy to have won the first Starbucks Coffee Championship in India with the support of my all other partners. In my free time, I love to read books, enjoy listening to music, and also cook good food. I also enjoy watching Shah Rukh Khan movies. At Starbucks, apart from coffee, I really enjoy connecting with customers and partners. As we all know, Starbucks is well known for its exceptionally high-quality coffees, roasting expertise, and ethical sourcing, which makes a coffee more than a beverage. Actually, a moment of pleasure and pride. Today, I will be doing coffee tasting of India Estates Blend from a unique coffee lineup. Now, as you all are served with a cup on your table, let's start the coffee tasting. Coffee tasting has 4 simple steps: smell, slurp, locate, and describe. Follow each of this step every time you taste in order to truly appreciate the characteristics of the coffee. So, let's start the coffee tasting. Always smell the coffee before you taste it. Wow, I'm getting smell of warm Java chip chocolate cookie when I work on food station in my Starbucks store. While it's important to slurp the coffee whenever you taste it, slurping sprays the coffee across the entire palate and lets subtle aromas and flavors reach your nose. So, on the count of 3, let's make a loud noise and slurp the coffee. 1, 2, 3.
I think it can be louder. Let's try again. Let's try again.
Again, 1, 2, 3. Wow, that's how truly great leaders slurp the coffee. So this coffee has a fine balance between herbal and chocolate notes, which is lingering on middle and back of my palate with prominent acidity. India Estate Blend is a single origin coffee from Karnataka, India, which has a medium body and medium acidity. India Estate Blend is a medium roast coffee. In this way, I always pour my heart while brewing coffee, and I would like to dedicate this coffee tasting to those farmers who really work hard on their farms, by which they provide us the beautiful and distinctive coffee by which we delight our customers. Thank you so much for joining the coffee tasting with me.
Thank you so much, Saili, for the wonderful experience. May I please request Harish to come back on stage? Thank you.
Thank you, Manmeet. Thank you, Saili. That was a wonderful coffee tasting experience, a very aromatic experience. Ladies and gentlemen, I will now request Dr. Mukund Rajan to come onto the stage and to begin the dialogue and hand over the dais to Mukund. Mukund, thank you very much. Please come onto the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our featured guest at this Tata Dialogue in Customer Centricity. Howard Schultz is one of the best-known corporate leaders of our age. He's built one of the most successful global corporations and brands in modern history. The Starbucks Coffee Company, which he has led with great distinction since inception, today operates over 23,000 coffee houses in nearly 60 countries. Now, many of you would be aware that during the period 2000 to 2007, Howard served as the chairman of Starbucks, but other individuals ran the company as the CEOs. In 2007, the company was headed towards the biggest crisis it had faced in its history. And this was exacerbated by the global financial crisis, which followed soon after. Howard, with enormous courage of conviction, decided to take personal charge of the situation and return to the company as its CEO. Take a look at the impact he's had at the company since then. As you can see from the slides on the screen, the interventions he made in strategy and customer centricity took the turnover of the company from $10.4 billion in 2008 to $19 billion in 2015, from a profitability of $500 million to a profitability of $3.6 billion, and from a market capitalization of $24 billion to a market capitalization currently of $86 billion, and hopefully soon to hit $100 billion. Performance that would be the envy of every business leader in the world. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and join me in welcoming on stage an icon of our times, one of the most thoughtful, charismatic, and inspiring business leaders in the post-war era, Howard Schultz. Please take a seat.
Thank you.
Welcome, Howard, to this Tata Dialogue on Customer Centricity, and thank you so much for agreeing to spend time with us. Now, this morning, as many of you would know, there's actually been a very unfortunate episode that has taken place in Jakarta in Indonesia. And Howard actually wanted to first address that before we got on with the question answer. So Howard, would you like to reflect on what we've heard this morning from Indonesia?
Well, first off, thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm humbled to be in an audience of such distinctive leaders in a wonderful, extraordinary company that's values-based as Tata. What I'm about to share with you, I know is very close to home, unfortunately, for everyone here, especially sitting at the Taj. Within 30 minutes ago, I was told of an act of terror in Jakarta. And unfortunately, that act of terror was close to a Starbucks store. The reports that we have gotten in the last 30 minutes are just coming in, so I don't know specifically if they're 100% accurate. But what we do know is that no Starbucks partner employee and no customer suffered any fatality. The bomb was near a Starbucks store, and unfortunately there was collateral damage with other businesses, and there were some fatalities outside of the store. I will share with you, it's not easy for me to sit here and talk about the things we're about to talk about with the burden of personal responsibility that I feel to our customers, our partners, and the concern I have for the people of Indonesia and Jakarta. But unfortunately, as we all know, we are living at a time right now of a great uncertainty and fragile nature in which there is a fracturing of humanity around the world that is a senseless act of violence and terror that many of us just cannot possibly understand or process. And is with great respect that I have for everyone that is going to be unfortunately touched by this senseless act of violence. And so with great respect, that's how I want to start this morning. And unfortunately, it's the preamble for this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those thoughts, Howard, and thank you for agreeing to doing this despite what we've heard this morning. I thought we might focus the Q&A session on really two essential areas. And after spending maybe 40-odd minutes on that, I thought we'd open it up to questions from the floor. The first area will really draw on some of the big lessons on customer centricity, which we can draw from Starbucks. And these will relate in significant measure to the steps that you took after you returned as the CEO of Starbucks. And the second area will deal with lessons in leadership. I think you've already given us a very good example of that, but I'm also very interested in your views on conscious capitalism and purpose-driven business, which I believe will continue to guide generations of managers in the years to come. So let's get started. My first question, Howard, a fundamental question. Why coffee? What captured your imagination about this beverage?
Well, as the story goes, I was in Italy as a young man for the first time in 1983. And while there, I discovered the romance of the Italian coffee bar. And what struck me, in addition to the quality of the coffee, was the sense of community that existed in the Italian coffee bar, not unlike in years past the English pub. And when I saw that, the idea I had and the dream I had is, could we replicate that through the lens of the American culture and American people? And so I rushed back from Italy, and that was the beginning of the initial story of the Starbucks that you know today, bringing and creating a third place in America between home and work, sourcing and roasting the highest quality coffee, and most importantly, trying to build a company that would achieve the fragile balance between profit, conscience, benevolence, and social impact.
Fantastic. Now, when you speak about coffee, it's often in words that are romantic, even sensual. We have your comment on
Yeah.
espresso on screen, by the way. Has anything else by way of product or service come anywhere as close as coffee?
Well, my children. But I think in terms of a product, I have an admiration for wine as well. And there's many similarities, believe it or not, in growing grapes, blending wine, and the artistry of the science and biology of growing coffee and growing wine, growing grapes.
Wow. What about tea?
Yeah.
And tell us about Teavana, the company that Starbucks acquired in 2012. And I understand that around a year and a bit back, I think you launched with Oprah Winfrey, the Oprah Winfrey Chai in the United States, which some speculate was actually inspired by her visit to India.
That's very true. I've been friends with Oprah for many years, and for a number of years tried to convince her to align herself with something that Starbucks could do from a product standpoint that also would have some kind of philanthropic component. And she always rejected anything that had to do with coffee, and then one day we got into this very passionate conversation about her love of tea, and specifically chai. And you're right, it was on the backside of a trip to India that she took. So we came together to develop Oprah Chai at Starbucks, which is Teavana based. But the big idea here is that tea is over a $100 billion category globally, larger than coffee. And our mission and objective as it sits today is to leverage a platform that Starbucks has to educate and create an understanding among our customers about the quality and the integrity of tea as both a beverage in our stores and whole leaf tea for home. And then at the same time, take the Teavana retail store and we believe create a global footprint for Teavana. And we hope to bring Teavana branded beverages to our stores in India here in calendar 16. And at some point in Asia, we will begin to open up Teavana stores. But we are a big believer in the opportunity we have to leverage our capability onto Teavana and build a global tea business for Starbucks.
Fantastic. You mentioned very briefly just a few moments back the coffee house serving as the third place.
Yes.
Home is the primary or the first place where a person connects with others. Work is a person's second place. So how important is this third place in our lives, and how have you seen Starbucks really leverage that insight?
Well, I think the interesting thing is we began this journey and idea about the third place in the late 80s, more or less. And as time has gone on and people have embraced with great passion personal technical devices, primarily the phone, we in a sense have become a society that's based on a singular device and have become not antisocial, but not engaged as much as we once were. So I think the relevancy all over the world of 23,000 stores in 70 countries, what we have found is that people are longing for human connection. People are longing for a sense of humanity. And I think coffee is a great conduit to conversation and social interaction. And we have tried to build our stores in a way that invites people not only to take the coffee to go, but to stay. We've never asked a customer any place in the world to leave. You can stay as long as you want and enjoy the space. So I think what we're selling as a company is much more than a cup of coffee. We're selling an aspirational experience. We're selling the environment. We're selling the romance of coffee. And we're also, I think, more than anything else, trying to elevate what it means to really embrace humanity as a core component of the equity of the Starbucks brand.
Wonderful. You've also referred to a virtual fourth place, hovering above every third place.
Yes.
How do we relate to this fourth place?
Well, I think 3 years ago in the US, I made a public statement that we are domestically and around the world experiencing a seismic change in consumer behavior. And that seismic change in large part is as a result of consumers embracing e-commerce and mobile as a source of shopping. And we all see it every single day. And that is resulting in a downturn of pedestrian traffic on Main Street and in malls all over the world. And specifically what I said is that if a bricks and mortar retail company embraces the status quo, it is a sure sign of a collision course with time. And specifically what I mean by that is that we as bricks and mortar retailers must understand that we need to invest ahead of the consumer with regard to the kind of innovation that creates relevancy and an emotional connection on their devices. And specifically what we did is we recognized that there was an opportunity because of the frequency of visit. Starbucks is the most frequented retailer in America in terms of how often people come. Our average ticket is $5, very low, but there's a large reservoir of trust that people have in the brand, in the experience. And the question we pose to ourselves is, could we create an opportunity for people to pay with their phones, and could we create an embedded loyalty program on the phone that would serve as a catalytic event in creating incrementality for our customers? So 3 years later, we are the leader in the world in terms of mobile transactions for a bricks and mortar retailer. Millions of transactions a week, over 20% of tender. But the big opportunity now is to take this and thread this around the world with not only mobile payment, but also bringing features and benefits to what we've done to create a mobile ecosystem that is complementary to what we've done. So a prime example of that is we've just announced partnerships with Spotify, the New York Times, Lyft, the competitor of Uber, whereby we're going to be doing a number of things that leverage the relationship we have with our customers, that we in fact can create a benefit to another company's customers by their engagement and their relationship with us. And as a result of that, we can all gain. Analysts in Wall Street have called this the Starbucks flywheel. I don't know if that's the right term or not, but we have certainly demonstrated at a time when most bricks and mortar retailers are suffering. We've just had a fantastic calendar year, and we're in a quiet period now. We'll announce our earnings on January 21st.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
In fact, this year at the Tata Annual Group Leadership Conference, the principal focus was on going digital, and I suspect some of the questions you're going to get in a little while will be around your experience on going digital.
If I can just add one thing, and that is that every business, every product, every service must understand that we are witnessing this seismic change in consumer behavior across the board. And as a result of that, it is incumbent upon us as managers and leaders to push forward on significant innovation. And innovation, I think, is a word that's tossed around. But let me give you an example of what innovation is not. In 2008, when I returned, we were doing a lot of things that people thought was innovative. I didn't quite agree with that. Innovation is not adding a line extension to a core product, a new flavor, a new size, new packaging. That's not innovation. That's like milking the cow, so to speak. Hope that was politically correct in India. Innovation is breakthrough creativity, where you have so much curiosity that you can see around corners, and then as a leader in the organization, you've got the courage and conviction to make a big bet. And I just think we all have to understand that we can't embrace the status quo as an operating principle. We must reinvent our company, because if we don't, we're going to be cannibalized by those competitors. We must self-cannibalize our own business and push towards the kind of innovation that really is breakthrough.
Thank you. Let's turn now to your decision to return as the CEO of Starbucks in 2007. Now, one of the key drivers for that decision was what you described as the commoditization of the Starbucks experience. Can you play out in more detail what you actually saw happening at that time?
The leaders of Starbucks at that time were wonderful people. No one gets up and decides that they're going to ruin the company's franchise. These are good people who unfortunately made some decisions that were inconsistent with our core purpose and reason for being. What I would say specifically is a group of people were trying their best, but at the end of the day, they were measuring and rewarding the wrong things. And specifically, what they were measuring and rewarding was efficiency, operational efficiency. Now, Starbucks is a business that is not based on efficiency. It's based on romance, aspiration, theater. It's, when we walk into a Starbucks store, I want to take our customers on a magical carpet ride. Literally, that's my vision. What I don't want to do is I don't want to measure transactions per hour or labor hours per hour and measure and reward that, because that is not the reason we exist. We do not exist for the core purpose of ringing the register and just making money. That is not a goal, that's aspirational, and you're not going to attract and retain great people for that purpose. We exist, our core purpose and reason for being is to achieve this balance between profit and conscience. And we have to reward the kind of things that are balancing out the need to make money, the need to build shareholder value, but also the need to serve our communities and bring our people along with us on this journey. And I should mention that I stand before you with humility because I do not have a business degree. I did not go to a fine Ivy League school in America. I couldn't get into those schools. I base my life and what I do every day on an instinct and a belief in our core purpose and reason for being, and also the innovation that I speak about is also trying to innovate on our people side. And innovation for me is not only customer facing, but also innovating as much as we can with our people who we call partners, providing them the benefits, the tools, the career counseling, to build the kind of company that when they go home at night, they're going to sit around the table with their parents or their wife or husband and their partner and have great respect and pride because they're working for a company that they really trust. And thank you. And the currency to build a great, enduring company today, although we have to innovate and we have to do all these things, the currency to do this that's foundational is building trust with your customers, trust with your shareholders, but most importantly, the foundation of all of that must sit on the foundation of trust with your people. And if you break that, all the innovation, all the creativity, and all the things you know that you can do will not endure. And so we have to build a giant reservoir of trust with our people, and every single day we have to make a deposit in that reservoir.
Fantastic.
I may be going too long-winded for you.
No. This is amazing, very insightful and very helpful. So a vital step that you needed to take when you came back as CEO, particularly to revive a faltering US business, was to re-engage those very partners you were just talking about, the people in the front lines, the baristas, the store managers. Now, they are the true brand ambassadors for the Starbucks brand. And because this is so relevant for Indian retail, we've actually put it up on screen, some of the comments that you made about the problems you faced, low motivation, high attrition, and so on. So I have two questions. First, how you dealt with these problems, and a follow-up question. I'd like you to particularly touch upon your decision in early 2008 to close all your US stores in order to retrain your baristas. That decision you knew, besides losing millions of dollars in sales and labor costs, would allow, to quote you, competitors to capitalize, critics to gloat, and cynics to smirk. And yet you chose to go ahead. Why?
Yeah. Well, first off, let me comment on how I view the courage it takes to lead. It's very, very easy and very comfortable to lead when you have the wind at your back. Now, we live by our core values, and we live by our core purpose and our reason for being. But the question was, in 2008, how much do you really believe in that when the headwinds are so great and the cynics are all lining up against you?
Right.
To really lean into your values. And what we decided to do in 2008 was our market cap, you said $24 billion, but that's not the true story. Our market cap dropped to below $6 billion. Our stock price was $6.81. You adjust that for the current split, our stock price now is about 120. But in 2008, an American expression is, they were coming for us. Does that translate? They were coming for us. They were hunting for us. And no one believed. The press was brutal. The bloom is off the rose. Starbucks' best days are behind them. How could they possibly bring back Schultz? They need a professional manager who really knows how to turn around the company. Well, that may have been true, but I came back because of two reasons: love and responsibility. I love Starbucks Coffee Company almost as much as I love my family, and my wife would say sometimes it's the other way around. And my responsibility was to the people of Starbucks and their families to restore and preserve the company and bring it back. But I had to make some tough decisions. The first decision I had to make was I asked the leadership team at the time, I need to be in front of every single store manager in America. And at the time, there was 9,000 store managers. Now, we were running out of money. We had negative comp store sales. Our stock price was plummeting. And I asked, I need to have a meeting of 9,000 people. And people thought I was crazy. First of all, where are you going to hold that meeting? How are you going to bring everyone together? And here's the story, quickly, because I know we got limited time. But as you can see, I'm a little bit of passion about these kind of things. We had, at the time in America, no company was traveling because it was a cataclysmic financial crisis. We had a bake-off of 3 cities, 3 municipalities, who came to us pitching the fact that we would hold this meeting and bring everyone there. And the city of New Orleans came and made this pitch. And as soon as we met them, I knew in my heart we had to go to New Orleans. Why? Because New Orleans had just suffered through a cataclysmic event, which was Katrina, a terrible, terrible hurricane. And they told us how much they needed this because this city was under siege. So we went to New Orleans. Now, people said to me, do you know how much money this is going to cost? And I said, no, how much is it going to cost? And they said, Howard, it's going to cost $30 million to bring 9, 10, 11,000 people to New Orleans for 3 days. The board is going to kill you. And I said, what better investment can we make at this time of crisis than an investment in our people? So we went to New Orleans. And I said, before we have our meeting, before we do anything that is Starbucks focused, I want to devote 50,000 hours of community service for a full day and give back to the community of New Orleans and help the people who were suffering. And we did that because that is the culture and values of the company. And then we had our meeting. Now, here's the punchline. We had this incredible meeting. It was not a convention. It was a catharsis. It was therapeutic. But the real question was, what am I going to tell them when I'm in front of 9,000, 10,000 people to get a return on this $30 million investment? And I was preparing my speech, which was so vitally important. It was a $30 million speech. And I had a little outline, and I showed it to a few people, and they said to me, you can't possibly say these things. Why? Because you're going to scare them. You can't tell them how bad it is. And here's the lesson that I learned then. The issue is we live in a society, unfortunately, where many leaders in all walks of life are not truthful. They're not authentic. They don't tell the truth for a whole host of reasons. I decided that day that the characteristic that I wanted to display to 9,000, 10,000 Starbucks partners was vulnerability. That I needed their help, that I was worried, I was concerned, that I couldn't do this alone, that we had to lock arms, we had to face the same direction, and we had to prove to the world that we were going to make the difference. And my speech that day, if I had to label it as what it was the call to action? It was, what does it mean to take something personally? What does it mean to make a difference with every single customer because we're fighting for our life? And I laid out for them what it would mean if, in fact, you exceeded the expectations of every single customer and they came back and they told a friend, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we left New Orleans. It was like a tidal wave of passion, enthusiasm, and trust and faith in the mission. And we never looked back after New Orleans. And it wasn't the speech. It was empowering people with truth It was empowering people to understand that Howard Schultz isn't going to make the difference. I can't lead them to the promised land alone. We have to do this together. And at the end, you have to answer the question in the affirmative. And this is critically important when we are all leading. And the question is, what is in it for them? And what's in it for them must be tangible. It doesn't have to be money, but it has to be meaningful. As leaders, we have to create an environment where people are truly larger, feel as if they are part of something larger than themselves. And if you can do that, the power of that is so significant. Starbucks is not a company that is greater or more or better or smarter than any other company in our field, or for that matter, any consumer brand. But you measure us against passion, conviction, courage, commitment, and an understanding of our values and our commitment to what we are, and we are going to beat you. Because we love what we do, and we feel deeply, deeply responsible to the 300,000 people who wear the green apron and their families to preserve and enhance this company the right way. And what we're trying to do in America today, and now a little bit around the world, is another issue, and that is answering the question is, this is a time around the world where businesses and business leaders in the private sector around the world must do more. We can't rely solely on government. We have to do more. So the question for all of us is, how can we reinvent the role and responsibility of a company? And for me personally, what I feel is we have to do more for our people, more for the communities we serve, and we need to use our scale for good, for social impact. And that has resulted in a number of things that we've taken on that are unorthodox, sometimes misunderstood, but we're going to keep pushing because we believe strongly that we have a role and responsibility beyond just creating shareholder value and making money. But if you look at the performance of the company, this reservoir of trust with our people and our customer has significantly added value to the performance of the company. And I will say finally, is this dream that I have, an aspiration about doing all these things, is linked directly to the fact that we must build shareholder value, we must perform, because that is the price of admission. But at the end of the day, I want to be, for Starbucks, a performance-driven organization through the lens of humanity. And every decision we're making strategically, I want to kind of metaphorically have two empty seats at the table, one for our customers and one for our people. And I want to answer the question, this strategic question and answer that we're now making, is it going to make our people proud? And if the answer is yes, I know we're on the right side. If the answer is no, I don't care how much money it's going to make, I don't care how much it's going to drive the company, it's the wrong decision. We have to make our people proud of the intentions, the convictions, and the decisions that we make.
Fantastic. The decision to close the stores.
Yes, I didn't answer the question.
Was that equally daunting? That must have cost you more than 30 million.
Well, the decision to close the stores in 2008 was obviously a decision that people thought, this guy is crazy. He's going to close 800 stores for an entire day. And I talked about truth and honesty. When I came back as CEO and I visited our stores, I didn't like the quality that the coffee was. I thought our people were taking steps that was dilutive to the quality of the coffee. And basically I said, we have to retrain our people on fundamentally what we do. We got to go back to the basics, to day one. When I was roasting coffee and I was behind the counter, we got to reteach our people what it is we do. So we closed 800 stores for an entire day to retrain our people. And what resulted in that was an unbelievable level of public relations, and it turned into a benefit. But it did something else. Our people knew what we were doing all along. Finally, they were heard. Finally, they knew we were addressing things that really mattered, and we were speaking the truth.
I can't think of a bigger statement backing your brand in the retail industry than doing what you did. It's just amazing. Howard, you've enunciated the Starbucks mission, something that really goes to the heart of Starbucks, who you are and what you stand for, as being to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person one cup in one neighborhood at a time. How important was it for you to outline this specific mission and in these terms?
I think it's vitally important. So much of the kind of company we are is based on the human experience. People write lots of stories that Starbucks is this great marketing company, great marketing machine. But the truth of the matter is, we spend less money on marketing than we do on training. Very, very little. The experience, the brand, quintessentially comes to life by our people. So we are in the business every day of elevating the human experience. And I think the quality of the coffee and the equity of the brand has come to life by that fragile transaction between the customer and our people. And if our people are proud of what they're doing, they're inspired, they believe it, and they can transfer that to the customer, there's no better example of what we can do. So aspirationally, we want to inspire our people, inspire our customers. We want to add value to the neighborhood in which our stores are located. And I think most importantly, we want to leave everything we're doing better than we found it. If someone's coming to work for Starbucks and they should leave, we want them to have the kind of experience where they're taking something with us. We open up in a neighborhood, we want to improve it. The customers today, unfortunately, around the world, customer service is not something that is rewarded. It's, customer service in the world today has become commoditized. So if you could really elevate that, it's such an anomaly that people are going to notice it, and they're going to come back and they're going to tell a friend. It sounds old-fashioned, but that's who we are.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wonderful. I'm going to go back to your years growing up. A big influence in your life seems to have been your family's circumstances. You were deeply affected by the hardships your father faced, his lack of job security and benefits, and you were determined to go back to college. Would you like to reflect on the impact of these on your career? And you've said that you wanted to build the kind of company that your dad never got a chance to work for.
I think everyone here today has been deeply affected, positively or negatively, by the experiences we had as children. And for many years, doctors have said that there's an imprinting process from birth to the age of 7 that really stays with you your whole life. Well, when I was 7 years old, I experienced something that deeply affected me that I carry with me every single day, and that is the scar and the shame of being a poor kid living in government-subsidized housing. But what happened was that I saw my father become a broken man because he was uneducated, and as a worker in lots of different bad jobs, he was not respected. He didn't make enough money, but he was not respected, and as a result of that, he became a very angry man, and that affected our lives and our family, and I was scarred with that. And so I never dreamed that I would be in a position one day to be part of a company where I would have authority, let alone build a company. But in my mind's eye, since I was a young boy until this very, very moment, what I've tried to do is build the kind of company that my father never got a chance to work for. So I have a deep level of sensibility for people who are living on the other side of the tracks, people who, for whatever reason, are labeled and deeply stigmatized as someone who is not going to come up in the world. And what I'm trying to do in the position I have is to level the playing field and to do everything we can to make sure that there's hope and there's opportunity for everyone, regardless of the color of your skin, your gender, your sexual preference, or where you were born, or what college you went to. And I think the world would be much, much better if we would embrace humanity, embrace diversity, and be much more thoughtful and respectful of the fact that we have many more similarities for all of us than we have differences.
Going to college, I know you've instituted some terrific programs for your partners. Would you
Yes.
like to reflect on that for a moment?
There's a lot of issues in America today, and one of them is the fact that students in America who have gone to school and either graduated or dropped out are sitting personally with a tremendous amount of personal debt. And that debt today, believe it or not, in America is larger than the debt of people's home mortgages. That's how large it is. But the issue is that young people in America who are sitting with this debt are not going back to college because they are saddled with these financial issues that they can't navigate through. We went to all of our partners in the US and we asked them, in addition to the fact that we provide equity in the form of stock options and health care, what could we do for you that would be really meaningful? And a majority of them said, is there a way in which we could get some kind of tuition reimbursement? So this past year, we became the first company in America to offer a free 4-year college tuition for anyone at Starbucks who wanted to apply for college through a relationship with Arizona State University. And this was the beginning, I think, of once again recognizing a level of innovation and creativity, but we want to be as employee and partner focused and centric as we are with our people, with our customers.
Yeah, that's amazing. Howard, I find tremendous congruence between the Starbucks values and those of the Tata Group. We've actually putting up a quote from our founder on the screen where he said, in a free enterprise, the community is not just another stakeholder in business, but is in fact the very purpose of its existence. So as in Starbucks' case, I think an inclusive vision of community and the responsibility of corporates has really defined the way in which the Tata Group has tried to conduct its business. Question to you, would you agree that we have convergent values? And how important was this for you when you were seeking a partnership in the Indian market?
I didn't know you were going to ask me that question, but I'm glad you did. And perhaps of all the things I've shared with you, I think this is the most important. We looked at the market of India as a great opportunity, but in our own due diligence, having not met anyone from Tata, everything we read, the people we've talked to, the values and the history of the culture and the guiding principles of Tata, we looked at that with incredible respect and admiration. We knew we had so much to learn from Tata. And when I met Ratan Tata for the first time and Mr. Krishna Kumar for the first time, I thought I was speaking to the elders, and I was in awe of what they had built. I was in awe of their integrity, their humility, and I came back to our team after meeting them and I said, if we are fortunate enough to create a partnership with Tata, that is our partner. And this is true. And I said, they know it. If we can't make an agreement with Tata, we're not going to be doing business in India. We're going to leave. That's true. Partnerships are hard. There's different interests. I can only tell you after 3+ years, the Tata organization, and now with Cyrus, has exceeded our expectations. And I just hope that Starbucks Coffee Company in the US and our business here in India, we can live up to the expectations you have of us. And I mean that with all my heart. You are all an extraordinary organization that we can only hope at Starbucks to become in the future.
Thank you so much, Howard, and I can tell you the sentiment is wholeheartedly reciprocated. Howard, just a few minutes back, you actually touched upon my next question. You spoke about redefining the role of a public for-profit corporation.
Yeah.
This is something you've talked about at different fora. What exactly do you have in mind?
I have to be careful to make sure I don't say anything that's politically incorrect. I think perhaps we all have a sense that there's a number of things going on that aren't quite right. And we look at things and we ask, why aren't they better? Why aren't they fixed? Why isn't there more leadership? And as a result of that and the national footprint that we have in the U.S. and the fact that we have stores in almost every community, I began to think about what could we do to use our size and scale for good. It would be apolitical, it would be respectful, and it would be through the lens of dignity, but what could we do? So in the last 2 years, with the support of our board, I have led an effort to try and convince other businesses and business leaders to join with me to take on some social issues that I think the government was not addressing, and I thought we could raise them, raise awareness, create a national dialogue. So, one example of that is, 2 years ago, the U.S. government shut down. And I looked at that and I said, let's give our customers a voice. And we had our customers sign a nonpartisan petition. And we just said, sign this, and we will deliver it to the President and the Congress to demonstrate how important it is to reopen the government. That was one example. 2 years ago, unemployment in America was very, very high. And we said, what could we do as a company to try? And the fact was that not only was unemployment high, but the banks were not lending. What could we do to use our scale for good and create jobs and create an opportunity for small businesses to get access to loans? And we did. These are just a few of the things that we've done to try and elevate our society and use our scale for good.
Fantastic. In fact, Starbucks has been, in that respect, I think, a pretty unconventional brand in choosing to speak up on social issues that matter. You talked about the national debt issue. You've gone on to a number of issues, some of which have been potentially divisive. You've talked about exercising the vote, race equality, lesbian and gay rights, guns in your stores. How easy is it to do this, and why don't we see many other brands doing this?
I can't speak for other companies, except I think there is trepidation and concern that there would be reverberation of some kind that wouldn't be positive. I just see the role that we have a bit differently, that we're not just here to ring the register, that we are here for other reasons. And again, I go back to our core purpose and reason for being. If we're about to do something, is it going to make our people proud? Is it going to advance our position in the marketplace with our customers? And everything we've tried to do, I think, has been through those guardrails. This is not for the vanity of Howard Schultz. This is for the improvement of our society in ways that we could be helpful. Not everyone agrees with the things we've done. I go back to something I said earlier. Performance is the price of admission for these things.
Right.
We have to perform. But I remember in 2008, as an example, when we were going through this cataclysmic problem, when I had an institutional shareholder call me on the phone and take me to task, lecture me, that we had to end our health care benefit for our people. And it was over $200 million at a time when we could have certainly used that money. And we wouldn't do it because it would have completely fractured the culture of the company.
Right.
And I basically said, and I said it respectfully, if you don't agree with this decision, perhaps this is not the company for you in terms of your shareholdings. And we ended the conversation and we ended up doing what we thought was right, and that shareholder in the next round of public documents was gone. And we did what we thought was right. And I think you got to ask yourself, what do we stand for? And it's easy to stand for things when everything is great. It's hard and inconvenient to lead when you've got pressure and you got the wind in your face. And I think that's when you got to stand up and be counted for.
Absolutely. Thank you. You've been a big believer of appealing to local tastes and markets. You've talked about engaging with the local neighborhood, the culture. So how do you in Starbucks today, as a global organization, balance the need for standardized, efficient processes and offerings with the need to be locally relevant across such diverse markets?
We can't succeed as a company in 70 countries with 23,000 plus stores if there is a group of people in Seattle holding on to every decision. Although I think there's people in Seattle who think they do that. We have to be a decentralized organization. So, I mean, in India, I think you go into our stores here in Mumbai, they're distinctively Starbucks, but they're incredibly different than any store we have anywhere in the world, because we are trying to design stores that are highly relevant and respectful to the local culture. And I'm so proud of how those stores look and feel. The same thing is true with the food. And so we want to decentralize those things that speak to the consumer, that they will embrace as their own. But I think people want to know they're walking into a Starbucks store, and it has all of the things that they're accustomed to seeing and tasting. But I think it's this fragile balance between it being a Starbucks store and having a local relevance. And I think those decisions have to be in the local market.
You've you referred to the team at Seattle, but I have to say this, that both at Seattle and across the world, I think you've got an outstanding leadership team. So my next question is, when you're building a senior team, what are the kinds of attributes you look for in your team members?
Okay, do I have time for a quick story?
Yes, please.
So when I was coming back in 2008, I went to try and seek out friends of mine and people I knew who could give me some advice. So I cycle, and I would go on bike rides with Michael Dell. He came back a year before me, and I was picking his brain about what he did and what things worked and everything, and he gave me some stuff. And then I went to see Steve Jobs. And in great fashion, I sit down with Steve, and he said, "How many people are going to report to you?" And I said, 11. And he said, "Fire them." And I said, "Steve, how could I possibly fire 11 people?" And he said, "Well, these are the people who got you in so much trouble. They're not going to believe, and they're not going to support you. Trust me, I've been there." So, of course, I didn't take his advice, and I inherited 11 people. And 6 months later, only one of them was left. Now, I'm not advocating firing people, but I am saying this. You have to hire people who have a skill base and experience that's greater than your own. Second, everyone on that team and everyone in the company who touches some part of the customer experience has to have shared values with you and the company. And you can't teach heart. I once owned a professional basketball team, and the coaches used to tell me, "You can't teach height." Can't teach height. Does that translate? You get that? Basketball, tall. And you can't teach heart. I want people who have fire in their belly, heart, conscience, benevolence, and a skill base to take the hill, and passion and belief. And then lastly, you want people who will leave their ego outside. Leadership and building a business is a team sport. It's a team sport. And if you have people on the team that are not for the team, it's time to go. You've got to elevate the team in every aspect of the business. And the team has evolved because we have to hire ahead of the growth curve with people who have skills and experience beyond our own, but they have to be values-based.
Thank you. Now down to my last two questions, and then we'll open it up to the floor. You've recently made a remark, I think it was relating to the US presidential elections, and it's a remark that will resonate powerfully.
Are you going to get me in trouble here?
In a moment. You said, Americans who are tired of politics as usual should demand a clear answer to a simple question from every candidate. What will you do to unite all of us? And I can tell you that's a question we should be asking all Indian politicians. But what's driving this question?
I have to be so careful here.
Wait for my next question.
Oh, okay. Like any country and any society, we are living in complicated times. And we always look back with great fondness on past leaders who had courage, integrity, and navigated through tough times. Around the world today, I think we are longing and searching for authentic leadership. And the question I try to pose is, if you are an elected official anywhere in the world, you got to put your feet in the shoes of the people that you're representing. You're not sent there to represent yourself or one specific part of the country. You're there to represent everybody. And I think the divisiveness that exists today in many parts of the world is there is a great, great need for authentic, truthful leadership that would unite people, bring people together. And one of the things that we're going to try and do as a company in the U.S. in calendar 16 is elevate the role of citizenship, elevate the understanding of what it would mean to elevate national service. And I have great faith in humanity, and I have great faith in the American people. And that's what I was trying to say, is that we're at a time right now in the world where we just need to come together. And as I said earlier in my remarks, there are so many things that divide us, but I believe strongly. Religion, politics, customs. There are so many more similarities and differences. If we would just embrace our differences, we would find common language, common understanding. And I think one of the aspects and characteristics of leadership that somehow is being dismissed is empathy.
Yeah, wonderful. So my last question, given your social sensibilities and your consciousness about what new kind of politics we need, is it possible that we could expect that Howard Schultz might ever run for president of the United States?
I thought about announcing this here today, but Mr. Krishna Kumar said I shouldn't do that on foreign soil. No, there was speculation about that a few months back, and my commitment is to the company, to my family, and I have no desire at this point in my life to run for political office.
Well, I wish you will at some point, but thank you very much for that. I'm now going to open up this dialogue for questions from the audience. I'd request if you can raise your hand, we'll get a mic to you, and then if you can identify yourself, and then ask Howard your question. So who'd like to go first? Yeah, we have somebody in the middle.
Howard, Mukund, Sanjeev, Sareen from Tata Coffee. Absolutely fascinating to listen to you. I probably heard it from two angles. There was a business viewpoint, probably, for the want of a better word, a spiritual angle to where you were coming from. I heard you talk equally about customer centricity and employee centricity. Because there's a huge debate possibly on that. There's a theory which says, look after happy employees, create customer centricity and create good organizations. If you were to pick one above the other in Starbucks, would it be customer centricity or employee centricity?
That's an easy question for me to answer. Many, many years ago, I took this pyramid that was in a business book, and the pyramid was shareholder on top, customer in the middle, and the employee on the bottom. And I inverted it. I don't think you can exceed the expectations of the customer unless you exceed the expectations of your people. So it's very easy for me to say that I think the first order of the business is to establish the kind of culture and values that defines the company, the brand, the enterprise. And I'll say something else, is that every organization has a memory. I'm not in Seattle today, and our organization is going to function fine because they know what to do. And the organization is imprinted with behavior. And that behavior in the early stages must be imprinted with the kind of values and culture that can withstand the pressures of the day. And only when you do that and you have that strong foundation can you then begin to address the customer. I don't think you can have a great relationship with the customer if you're dealing with a culture that is carcinogenic. I get asked in America all the time, would you come speak to us about reinventing culture. I can't reinvent their culture. I can't give them a speech and all of a sudden things are going to be better. The leadership of the company must address those problems one by one, because there are systemic issues that have been imprinted in bad cultures, bad companies that people remember. And people need to see a sea change in order to do that. The last thing I would say is that whether it's the customer or your employee, is that every behavior matters. People are watching all the time. They see what you do. They see what you say. They're seeing how you're leading. And you're modeling behavior for everybody else. So everything matters, especially in the early stages of a new business.
Thank you. The next question. Yep, LKK. If you get a mic up front.
This is Krishna Kumar from TGBL. The question for you, Howard, is how do you define a Starbucks consumer? Either in terms of demographics, in terms of income levels, or is it different across different countries?
How do I define the Starbucks consumer?
That's right.
We're in a very fortunate position today. Last week, about 85 million customers went through Starbucks stores. And it's a very, very diverse group of people, young, old, male, female. We've never targeted a specific customer. We've never segmented a customer for a product. That's not how we viewed our business. The one thing that has happened is that we've identified other need states and other day parts for new products. But the customer profile is very broad. I think the only thing I'd say is I'm very conscious of the fact that we have to constantly get younger to ensure the fact that millennials really understand who we are, what we stand for, and find Starbucks something that they want to embrace. And I think that's the underlying strength of the company, is we are very aligned with young millennials who view the conscience of the company as something they want to embrace. And I'd say lastly is that in a consumer-driven society, there's so many choices. We all have so much competition. And I strongly believe, primarily because there's so much information out there on the web, the consumer today is so informed. They know so much about your company, not only the features and benefits of your product, but they know your values, they know what you stand for. And customers, if given the choice, are going to support those companies' products and services whose values are compatible with their own because they trust them.
Howard, hi, I'm Jamshid. I look after our food retail business. Howard, we have a very high attrition level at the stores. Perhaps that's the same in Starbucks. How do we create the sense of partnership when the longevity of the employee with the organization is rather limited? Yeah. And how do you do that, and what challenges do you face when you do that for Starbucks?
Well, I think the first question that has to be answered is why are people specifically leaving? The answer to that question, I think, is going to provide some navigational tool as to what you need to do to remedy the situation. But people obviously need to see an opportunity for personal growth in terms of the next position as a result of the growth of the company. I would also say that perhaps this is a time in the development of Starbucks Tata India where we need to invest ahead of the growth curve and the profit curve in benefits and a proposition for employees, partners, who can see the fact that we are taking steps to invest in them perhaps before we have the economies of scale that we would have naturally. And I think this is a critical question that we need to answer together, that we spoke about yesterday in the private meetings we had. And Starbucks needs to provide some help and answers to the question, and also perhaps ways in which we can invest with you on the most important issue of the day. But certainly we can't ignore the fact that the attrition rate is very high and accept it as a way of doing business. One, the cost of attrition and retraining and customer relationships is something that's very fragile. And second, people working alongside somebody who keeps changing provides them more burden for them, and it's a terrible sign. We need to fix that, and we need to help you with it.
Hi, Howard. Rakesh from Taj. I have a two-part question, if I may. How much of your total revenue in the U.S. comes from the airports?
What was it?
From the airport.
How much of your total revenue in the US comes from your airport?
Airports. John, how many stores do we have in airports? Maybe 1,000? So we have about 13,000 stores in North America and roughly about 1,000 stores in airports. So not a large number, but important in terms of the brand.
So, from a top line perspective, it's not a big number.
No.
It's no secret that you've been frustrated, that your culture is not alive and well at the airports because you can't hire those baristas.
Yes.
Why don't you walk away?
Well, first off, I wouldn't say that one size fits all. Not every store in an airport is performing at a lower quality or performance than a traditional store. But I believe that we can work with licensed partners, as we have in many airports around the world, to improve and elevate the service. But the burden of responsibility is on us. A licensed operator is never going to have the same level of passion and commitment and conviction that we do. But we cannot accept that as a level of mediocrity that is going to be the reason to stay. We've debated this many, many times within Starbucks, and we've convinced ourselves that we can improve the situation. Are you talking about a specific airport? Okay. Because maybe we need to address the airports in Mumbai. That's a joke. I was speaking about the U.S. Okay.
This is Sushant from TGBL. Two questions. One, what is your vision for Starbucks in India? And a related question is, how attractive do you find India as a market?
We had this question at dinner last night. I look at India with great optimism. There's lots of people around the world for the last few years have compared the race between India and China. I don't see it that way. I think China has its own issues that are structural and transformation, and they're going through a transition as well, and India has its own issues. But you look at the rise of the number of people in India that are rising to the level of middle class and disposable income. You look at the opportunities here, I think, are quite significant. So I think Starbucks will have a major, major business in India that is much larger than it is today in terms of the number of stores, that will rival many of the large markets we have around the world. We should have a significant business in other channels of distribution, which would be CPG, with our products as well as products from Tata. And we will bring all of our resources and learning around the digital and mobile ecosystem that we have built in America that is best of class. And some of it will arrive this summer in our stores in India, and that'll be a game changer in terms of what we will do. But we're in the infant stages of the growth and development of Starbucks as a company in India. And I think India, in many ways, is growing up and has enormous opportunities to rival some of the great markets around the world, and I'm a strong believer. Yes, sir, in the back. I think we need a mic, man. Oh. Go ahead. We'll get to you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Sorry. So you said a few questions back that you want to go behind the millennials, who's the younger TG. So I actually wanted a quote that, a social media joke that's doing the rounds, and then ask my question. I saw a guy today at Starbucks. He had no smartphone, tablet, or laptop. He just sat there drinking his coffee, like a psychopath. Okay, like a psychopath. Okay. So this TG is no longer bonding or having a community sense. And if the vision and the core of Starbucks is bonding as a community, how do you think it's going to be relevant in 10 years' time? And they're not necessarily bonding. And that's the question for not just coffee per se, but any physical retailer. But they're very disconnected from today's physical spaces, and they're only connecting in the digital space. So how would Starbucks as a community bonding space be relevant?
I just need to help. What was the question?
So basically for millennials,
Yeah.
I think are increasingly on the net or the digital space, the fourth place.
Okay.
How relevant is the kind of community that Starbucks is creating in the physical third space going to be?
millions of people are coming into Starbucks stores every day. They have different needs. They have different desires. They have different behaviors. We're trying to create a place that is agnostic for all kinds of behavior. People are coming there in groups, they're coming there alone, they're coming there to meet people, but it is a social place. We did some research a long time ago, and someone said, I come to Starbucks every day because it's the only social interaction I have. And then we said, well, tell us about it. And he says, well, the truth is, I don't really talk to anybody. But I'm online, and I see the same people almost every day. And we have established a relationship. I know it sounds strange, but that person may be sitting at a computer at his desk for 8 hours a day, and he goes to Starbucks, and he has some level of social interaction. We can't define for somebody what that should be. We can't prescribe it. But we have created an environment that is highly, highly relevant. And for the brand and the experience we're trying to create, I think we're trying to do two primary things. We're trying to create relevancy in terms of what we do, the place, the product, our people, and we're trying to create an emotional connection with our customers around the equity of the brand, however that comes about. And we can't deny the fact that people are on their phone all day long. I think I read recently that the average person is checking their email 250 times a day. That's a lot. So the world is changing. We have to evolve, we have to change, but I think the place that we've created is going to stand the test of time for quite a while. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi. I'm Richa Arora, work with the consumer products business at Tata Chemicals. So you made a comment on honesty and authenticity, and I'm kind of emboldened by that to make a comment and ask a question. You spoke about stores and how they should be, they are meant to be where people stay and don't go, because that's the kind of warmth which the people exude. If I look at the India experience, or even Mumbai, the stores themselves are so varied. If I go to...
The stores are very varied in Mumbai.
And if I have an experience at Horniman Circle around the corner, or if I go to Bandra, it is so small that it actually makes you want to leave.
Okay.
So how do you kind of ensure that you are able to is this a challenge you face across the globe?
Sure.
And how are you looking at overcoming that? Because personally, a lot of these Starbucks, which one experiences on a smaller scale, do not really invite you to stay for longer than a cup of coffee.
Right. Last year we opened, I think, about 1,800 stores globally. And we'll open up pretty much the same this year. What we've learned over the years is that we've been able to design and create many different retail formats that are designed for the neighborhood, the street, or that particular type of customer that exists. A store in an office building is different than a store in a suburban neighborhood. We have a couple of thousand drive-thrus alone in the state of California. Very, very different than the third place experience that we've created here in this hotel. So the question we're trying to answer is, what kind of store is best suited for the neighborhood, the environment, and the need state that customers have? A great example of that is we have a new kind of store that we begin to open in New York City. And it's a very small store. It's 50 meters, 500 square feet. It's not a store that is the third place. It's a store that is based on speed and transactions because it's located right at the foot of Wall Street, and the traders and everybody there just wants their coffee and wants to get out. So not all stores are the same. Not all stores fit the criteria of the traditional third place, but every store is pouring superb quality coffee by passionate people. And that is the common thread of the company. So I would hope that the culture and values would rise above the particular store format that may not be the kind of store that you were looking for at that moment. but hopefully you'll have the kind of experience that is in keeping with the integrity of the company we're trying to build.
Emmanuel, right at the end. Yep.
Thank you, Mukund. Howard, I want to really thank you for making the statement that Starbucks spends more money in learning than marketing. I'm from the Tata Management Training Center. So it's a great statement, and we will remember for a long time, and you made it in an august audience like this. I just was wanting to understand, you said that you can't teach heart. How do you kind of find out who has the right heart? Because people can also change heart.
That's a very difficult question. The secret sauce of the entire company is the culture of the company. And we spend so much time talking about what it means for all of us, how to elevate it, and when we see it that's not consistent with it, make sure that we're redirecting behavior. We've hired a number of people over the years who interview really well and have a fantastic resume, a stunning resume of education and work experience, and they're right in front of you, and they light you up in an interview. And you hire them with great intentions. And within a few weeks or a month, sometimes you start seeing some cracks, because the person that you interviewed who had the education and work experience somehow is not the same person. But now he has a job. So you're watching him. Then you get some feedback from some people, and you hear things like, he's not one of us. Or, did you see what he said or how he said it? And you spend some time with him, and because you were the person who hired them, and you don't make any mistakes, you convince yourself that you can change his behavior. More weeks go on, more months go on, and the cracks become wider. And now 6 months have gone on, and this new person has begun to imprint his or her behavior on others. And you still have convinced yourself you can change him. And now a year goes by, and he or she has infected the company with a bad behavior. And then you finally make the decision to remove that person because he or she was not right. You've now cost the company a year. You've imprinted such bad behavior with so many other people, and now you got to hire somebody else. So the best thing we all can try and do, and it's not easy, is how can we find those young stars in the companies that we're in that we can identify early, because they have the heart, they have the conscience, they breed the culture, and elevate them in the organization and stretch them and give them the tools and the resources to grow. And then, what can we do to try and minimize hiring mistakes and not be seduced by a resume, not be seduced by an education because he went to some Ivy League school? So this is a hard thing. Attracting and retaining great people is an art. But I'm unwilling on any level to subordinate the culture of Starbucks and what we're trying to do for talented, experienced people who are not behaving the way I think is consistent with the heritage and tradition of our company.
Thank you. We're probably going to make this now the last question. So go ahead.
You have the burden of the last question, which means it has to be easy and complimentary.
My name is Siddharth. I'm with Tata Unistore, our e-commerce business. I'm going to make it complimentary to begin with.
No, I'm kidding.
So everyone says Starbucks really gets its customers. How do you get your customers? Do you talk to them directly? Is it through the baristas? How do you engage? or is it through formal market research? How do you get a sense of what should we introduce, what should we do better? And when you hear of new competitors, when there is a new Panera bread that is biting on your heels, how do you make that experience better for the customer? I think fundamentally, we're talking about customer centricity. How do you become customer centric?
Well, first off, we're not a research-driven organization, although we've become much better at gathering and understanding data. And I want to make sure that what I'm about to say is through the lens of humility and not arrogance. Success in business is not an entitlement. It has to be earned. And certainly, you have to earn the right to serve the customer. So reputation is everything for a consumer brand. And reputation goes across the board with everything we do. We're not a company that creates a product to try and drive new people in, and we're not a marketing-driven organization. The success of the company has been based on over many, many years on this experience that we are constantly trying to refine and elevate in a way that creates more people coming in. The one discipline that has become a major attribute of the last 3 years, clearly, has become we are best of class at social media. And I think we use that in a way that has created tremendous value, interest, and connection with our customers. And I think we understand how we can drive incrementality, leveraging the mobile ecosystem and the loyalty program that we've created that we'll start to bring here next summer. But you know, this is, of all the things, of all the businesses that you could choose, being a bricks and mortar retailer today, let alone one that has a global platform, this is hard, hard work. And we are dealing every single day with the human condition of employees, partners, and customers, which is very fragile. And there's no secret or one answer that I can tell you other than what I started talking about, is how do we elevate the love we have for the company and the responsibility that we all have to contribute to the success of the company, and how do we thread that into everyone in the company taking it personally. And if you can do that, you have a great chance of gathering an attachment emotionally with customers who want to be part of something that they recognize as unique and special. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Howard. Ladies and gentlemen, Howard Schultz.
Thank you very much.
Howard, can I ask you to stay on stage for just one more moment? Can I request Chairman Cyrus, would you come on stage, please? And we'd like to present Howard with a small memento as a token of the Tata Group's affection and regard. This memento is a commemorative coin which was issued by the Government of India and released by the Prime Minister to mark the 175th birth anniversary of Jamsetji Tata.
It's actually the first time the Indian government has created a coin. Beautiful. I'm very, very honored to receive this. And thank you all very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Howard, on behalf of the whole Tata Group, I'd like to say that we're proud to be your partner in India. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.